Oh, look, guys, another female school shooter. They're certainly showing up out of the woodwork, aren't they? This one's from Brazil, and she's only 19. And you know something? I had to search very hard to find this article because the anti-male media keeps this kind of news under wraps. They make sure it's buried. Now, this young lady, of course, she brought a 38 caliber revolver with her to school. Luckily, they stopped her before she killed anyone. And of course, they try to make excuses for her. There are, however, suspicions that she would have consumed drugs before the act. But right down here, they contradict themselves. The young woman claimed to have acquired the weapon on her own, unbeknownst to her family, and kept it with her from the day before the attack. So it was all premeditated. This had nothing to do with drugs. So they're just making excuses for her. And this is a pretty 19-year-old girl. She has the world by the balls. She has no excuse for her actions. What's happened, guys, is that the modern day has allowed women to take their violence outside the family into the public. That's what you're going. Women were always, always, always violent. More violent than men. It's just that it was always kept in the private sector, right? Now, they talk about female shooters are exceedingly rare. And I got to say is, so what? You know what this is? It's propaganda that say women aren't violent. Now we'll look at a couple of these. We'll look at this one. This is one I did a video on before, right? Female mass shooters are so rare. Let's hear it.
She is from Southern California, and she was very upset with YouTube.
She was doing this.
Women usually are not as likely as males to kill strangers. Usually their crimes involve people that they know, specifically intimate partners or children.
Intimate partners or children, that's right. They don't have to deal with aggression outside. That's the man's problem. She saves our aggression for her loved ones and children. In other words, people who can't defend themselves.
Women are also typically less likely to use a firearm. They instead use things like poison or suffocation.
So poison is for the man, suffocation is for the children, right? Yeah, big difference. So what? Right? And someone down here in the comment section even mentioned it. They mentioned two things. One, the picture makes it look like you are celebrating her. Creepy, BBC, just creepy. Thank you, young fella. Because it did look like that, right?
This case is particularly interesting for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that this particular perpetrator, while appearing to have a grievance against YouTube, doesn't seem to be directly tied to them in terms of being like an employee. Females most commonly commit mass shootings at either school locations or workplaces.
I think she had a channel, YouTube channel. That's why. So she was connected to it.
This particular case, you've got essentially an outsider who has now come into the location with no direct ties other than the grievance and has chose that spot to offend, which is very unique.
The male wounded in the incident is believed to be the suspected shooter's boyfriend.
Even then, it was her boyfriend. Jeez. This is important. Are women suspects portrayed differently? Of course they are.
When we talk about these shootings committed by males, it's usually that these are, these sort of hyper masculinized individuals who have some sort of a grievance. When the news broke about this particular shooting, she was immediately pegged as a domestic violence case, and of course that turns out not to be the fact. But that just shows.
Yeah, domestic violence. They're always looking for outs for women, guys. They're always looking for an out. Of course, they're blaming violence on masculinity. Men have nothing on women for violence.
Shows how offending by women tends to be mitigated in that respect.
That's right, it's mitigated. Now, I want to look at this one, where of course, where are we here? Yeah. Well, they'll blame men too as well for what women do.
Business life.
Sorry, let's start.
And so there's a
Start this at the beginning. There.
You might remember Jihad Jane. She's an American citizen that was convicted of terrorism-related crimes a few years ago. As a female, she really stuck out to a lot of people. But now we're hearing more and more stories like Jihad Jane, like the females who participated in the attacks in Paris, as well as in San Bernardino. Joining me now to talk about this is Dr. Carla Greco-Manley. She's a clinical psychologist who specializes in women's issues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Now, are male jihadists just becoming more accepting of females participating in terrorist groups, or do you think women really are becoming more violent?
Actually, they have always been accepted, just that the women weren't willing to do it before.
I think it's actually both, Danielle. Women historically have been in the background in wars, and now that they're moving more.
Yeah, they don't have to get their faces blown off. That's right. Women have privilege like you.
To the forefront, women are taking on the more aggressive roles, depending upon the culture that they come from.
No, that's a lie. All their aggression has been at home. It's just that it's being put out into the public now.
Certain cultures have long advocated women's participation. In the U.S., women, especially with the Secretary of State's recent decisions, women are moving more to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've got a theory you call women evolving violently. Tell us a little bit about that.
What I find in my private practice is that women are coming in to see me with a great deal of confusion about how to act. They're not certain if to take the more traditionally passive caregiving role or whether to take the more aggressive roles, whether it's in home life or in business life. And so there's a lot of confusion on the part of both men and women in what's involved.
There's no confusion here. There's not. The only confusion women have is how they can have their cake and eat it too.
In these changing roles.
I was going to ask you, how
No roles have changed. None. Women keep men in their gender roles. The only thing is, if a man can't pay the bride price, she doesn't deal with him. That's the only difference.
does this affect men? Are they becoming more nurturing?
That's a good question. I think some men are definitely becoming more nurturing and more comfortable.
Bullshit. Men have always been nurturing, right? She didn't know what to say to that, right? How are we going to give men like a pat on the back? I'm against that. That's what she is. Anyone who's for women's issues is against men's.
Comfortable with caregiving roles. I think that women too, many women really relish the nurturing caregiving role, yet.
Well, it's the easy one. It's the easy one. That's why. And they're in charge of the family unit.
They're finding that with their increase in power socially, they're.
No. They're not increasing. They've always had it. They've always had incredible social power. It's not increasing. It's the same.
Confused. How do I act? Whether in my business world, how do I act at home? What should I do? Who should I be? Do I take an aggressive role? Do I take an assertive role? Mm-hmm. And many women are resorting to taking passive aggressive roles, and it doesn't serve them or men.
Now, I've used the example of women because.
What are you talking about?
becoming more radicalized as an example, but what's some of the violence that females participate in that you've personally seen?
Women tend to act out more in their home environments rather than outside in the.
There you go. That's the only difference, guys. They keep their violence in the home where their family suffers. They are just as violent, if not more so, than men. They're just not held to the same standards as men. And they don't have to take a risk outside the family.
So in social settings. And I'm finding that women are confusing. There are 5 communication styles, and women are tending to confuse being aggressive with being assertive.
No, they're not confusing anything. They are aggressive.
And as women walk that fine line in determining how to become assertive without being aggressive.
Violence isn't aggression. It's violence. So this is a non sequitur, guys.
That's the place where I see most of the room where women take a step toward being violent and acting out, whether it's throwing a hairbrush, throwing a coffee cup, slapping someone when they wouldn't normally have done that.
Excuse making. She's saying women aren't naturally violent. This is bullshit.
Do you think this increased violence by females represents a generational shift in attitudes
No, this is not increased. It's just out in the open now, in the way it wasn't in the past.
toward violence?
I do think that that's involved to a large extent as women look for role models
Be prepared for men to be blamed.
of how to be in a more aggressive world and in a more assertive world.
No. It's not a more aggressive world. It was far more violence going on in the past than now.
They tend to model themselves after men, and men tend to be more aggressive. And
There you go. See, these women aren't just naturally violent. They're modeling themselves after men. So when these women like suffocate their babies because they don't want to have to deal with them anymore, that's because their husband made them do it.
that's the model that women are following.
Okay, we've just got a few seconds left. Is this trend likely to continue?
This is absolute gaslighting. Women follow the trends of women. They look to other women. Women see us men as beneath them. They don't look at us as role models. They look at other women. No. Women have always been like this, and it's just being shown to us out in the open now. The mask is off. And so you get people like this trying to gaslight, make excuses, tell bold-faced lies. No. I'm glad someone found this on Twitter for me, because this young lady, she has no excuse. She isn't abused. Her family life is good from what I understood. She just had a grievance against the school and she wanted to take action. That's it. So, bullshit debunked.